Okay, hear me out. Mark Hulmes collabs with Ginny D. Ginny D collabs with Dungeons and Dragons for the Tasha cosplay. Mark Hulmes collabs with Dungeons and Dragons for the Knights of Evening Star game. Ginny D on Knights of Evening Star when? Recently, I saw a video by Ginny D and Mark Hulmes where they ask each other questions about their experience with D&D, and I thought it was really cool. So I decided, since she put the questions in the description, to join along myself. And since I don't have anyone to ask me the questions all alone, my computer will do it instead. I'm not gonna lie, I can't really remember. I'm more of a DM than a player, but I believe my first ever D&D character was a rogue named, I believe, Althard, which is the same name I gave my rogue in World of Warcraft. Consistency, you know. I've always enjoyed playing rogues whenever I play D&D. Rogues, bards, warlocks, that's sort of my cup of tea. Again, I don't really play as much as I DM, which is fine by me. I love DMing. The first character I really got into was Cal, my bard necromancer. He was really fun. I only played him for a few games, but it was really fun to do that. It was the first time I really got into playing a D&D character, just because the idea of a guy who raises the dead by singing stupid semi-jazz tunes is amazing to me, even if in real life I cannot sing. So this question's got a couple components. There are plenty of D&D classes that I haven't played yet, and of all the classes I've played, there's none that I hated, but there are classes I can't see myself playing for thematic reasons. However, the counterpoint to that is that D&D isn't a video game, it's a game in your imagination, and I could rewrite classes alongside my DM to fit them around a theme that I would more like. Like, for example, I wouldn't like to play a raging barbarian who was fueled by his anger. However, I could reskin that barbarian to be a frail human who is possessed by some sort of ghostly entity, sort of like venom that comes out whenever he quote-unquote rages. Reskinning the class, but keeping the mechanics, because I actually think the mechanics of a barbarian are fairly cool. So that is retooling a class around a different theme that I would absolutely love to play out in a D&D game. And that's just one example of how your imagination can completely transform a class. As long as your DM is willing to work with you on that, it can really work to tool a class around a theme you more enjoy. Now, with that being said, I don't see how I could really retool a monk. I can't see myself playing a monk. I'm sure if I were to sit down and start writing, I could write an interesting monk that I'd love to play, but there's so many other classes that I haven't tried yet, with themes I haven't attempted, that the monk is sort of low on the pecking order for me. In terms of classes I don't want to play for mechanics, Ranger is up there. Ranger is just not appealing to me. Fighter, specifically Champion Fighter, is just really bland. I could see myself multi-classing into it to sort of give some melee spice to another class, but just Champion Fighter alone just does not seem very fun to me personally. So yeah, those are two classes I just really can't see myself playing for mechanical elements, which to me are really hard to change just because I don't want to mess up the game. Like, I can rewrite a class fairly easily. Well, not easily, it does take some time, but I can do that. Changing mechanics, like game mechanics, is way more difficult. There is only one real answer to this question. It's Mordenkainen's Magnificent Mansion. If you don't pick Mordenkainen's Magnificent Mansion, I'm pretty sure you're insane. You get infinite food, infinite housing, you never have to pay rent again, you never have to get a hotel again, you never need to stay in an uncomfortable place you don't want to be at. If you need to, like, go to a relative's, you don't have to stay at their house, you can just summon your own house. The house can look like whatever you want. Infinite servants. Did I mention infinite food? Because I should mention it again. What in that is, like, bad? I can't think of a single spell that I would like to have more than that. Spells like, for example, Wish, I've seen DMs like do drawbacks, but more than Kindness Magnificent Mansion, there's almost never a drawback, and you can cast it once per day. So, and it lasts 20 hours, 24 hours, so it's basically perfect. I would love to have more than Kindness Magnificent Mansion. It's pretty much the only spell I could think of that would really just completely change my life and make everything easier. I mean, I could also use a Mage Hand, but I can't see like something like Mage Hand or Prestidigitation just completely revolutionize my life. Like, more than Kindness Magnificent Mansion, I'd never have to buy food again. I could just make food using the mansion. It would be incredible. And heck, like, the things you can do with Mage Hand, you can just do with the invisible servants that come with the mansion, right? So, I'm just saying, Mordenkainen's Magnificent Mansion is the only answer that I could possibly think of. Okay, this one's a tie. Number one, I love mimics. Mimics are really fun to use as a DM, but you need to use them sparingly. Like, you can't have a mimic around every single corner in every single loot room. You need to do it with surprise. And on top of that, you can't just use chests. Like, mimics could be anything. They could be a boot trying to gnaw off your foot. They could be a potion that, like, lays eggs in your stomach when you drink it. They could be, yeah, a chest that tries to eat you. But there are plenty of different mimics out there, and I've seen so many people come up with really neat ideas for mimics, like the potion one. That one's just evil. That one is just straight up evil. But yeah, I love mimics just because when you use them right and use them sparingly, they can really shock your party and lead to some really epic moments with you as the DM. And I imagine they're fun for the party too. Who doesn't like a little scare? Another monster that I really love, and a little bit of backstory behind this. In real life, my favorite animal are big whales. I love whales. Humpback whales, sperm whales, blue whales. I just think they're so magnificent and almost like alien and mysterious. So obviously, my favorite monster in the monster manual would be our resident alien whale, the aboleth. The aboleth is just such a cool monster. I have always felt that they're too small. Like, they're only 20 feet long. A sperm whale is like 53 feet in length, I think, on average. So I feel like aboleths are a little runty compared to that. I really love the idea of just a vast monster lurking in the depths beneath your feet. It's just, that always gives me chills. And the aboleth is just the epitome of that. If, you change the size a little bit. 20 feet is a little small. But they do have some really cool abilities. Like, their mind control stuff is really cool. Their poison, mucus stuff that comes out of their skin is also really neat and can really mess up your party. And I think aboleths, if you tune them up a little bit, can make a really interesting BBEG for a higher level party. It is a shame that they're kind of overshadowed by monsters such as dragons, krakens, stuff like that. But the aboleth will always have a special place in my heart just because of their connection to my favorite animal in the real world, and also their Lovecraftian influences. I'm a huge sucker for Lovecraft stories, so yeah, that helps too. So, he might not be a villain. My party watch these videos, or at least some of them do. I know a couple of them do. So I don't want to give away any campaign lore details. So he may be a villain, he may not be a villain. They don't know, and you won't know either. But I really enjoy this character I made called Crawford Cyrillish. He is a Machiavellian political schemer. He definitely is a morally ambiguous guy, but he is the sort of enemy of my enemy is my friend. He's fighting against the same cult that the party are, so his standing with them is really tenuous. Some of the party tolerate him, some of the party like him, and some of the party absolutely hate him. It makes him an interesting character, and I like how it creates conflict among the group. They don't, hate each other because of him. They're not, the players aren't at each other's throats. But it's interesting to see them debate, what they should do, because he is a Machiavellian manipulator, but at the same time, he's on their side, but you don't know his ulterior motives. It makes it really fun. And also, as a DM, I'm always trying to outwit my players, and this character, Crawford Cyrillish, lets me do that to the fullest extent. When I reveal to the party how he has received his own sort of reward out of what they're doing, it is really fun and interesting. For example, he gave them a letter, and told them that this is where their mutual enemy, the Scarlet Templar, are hiding in a secret castle. They just thought that he was giving them information and that they were going to go to this castle, take out the Templar, and retrieve the artifact inside the castle. He had an ulterior motive. He wanted to guarantee the Templar were destroyed and his men couldn't find the castle. So he manipulated the party, gave them this letter, which was actually like a little tracking device, and he called up his sister, sent their army, and just destroyed the castle while the party were still in it. It created an incredibly tense escape sequence, and it was really awesome to reveal that the whole time he had been playing them. And he's done that, I think, 2 other times before that. So the party really have to watch themselves around this guy, because while he is technically on their side, he's trying to kill the same enemies that they are. But he definitely goes about it in a more suspicious, more morally ambiguous way. And I really love his character because of that. I've loved playing him. He's been really fun. Recently, there have been some more developments with the more human side of him, because they recently found out that another NPC that they've grown more attached to, an NPC that most of the party actually really like, he's adopted her as his daughter, which shows like the more human side of him. Like, does he have an ulterior motive for adopting this girl, or is he actually like being a nice and caring guy? Like, what's his aim here? It's really interesting to watch the party debate these sort of things. So yeah, that is by far the favorite NPC I've ever created. I think Althard got killed by like a Dragoloth multi-attack, but I can't remember honestly. I haven't had any very memorable character deaths, and Althard might have just gotten close to dying, and I'm just blanking on memory here, but I really don't remember any very cool character deaths, which means I probably didn't have any, so sorry about that. Well, there was one time, my cleric in my party, she had an awesome moment. Now keep in mind, this cleric is support. She heals a lot, buffs a lot, stays in the back a lot, doesn't really do those epic final blows. But here, she got a pretty good one. So what happened was, the party were fighting a group of Dragonborn, those Scarlet Templar I believe I mentioned earlier. They were trying to kill a lieutenant of the Scarlet Templar, a ghostly necromancer kind of character. But before they fought him, they had to fight a wyvern and a handful of Scarlet Templar warriors, along with a kobold or 5. And the fight got pretty intense. That wyvern kicked their butts, and 2 of the party, the other 2 members of the party were down, the druid and the fighter, and the cleric was all that was left, and it was her facing down this wyvern, and it was an epic scene, an epic moment, and she had one last trick up her sleeve. She had her spiritual weapon out, and I was like, okay, let's roll that attack, and she did, and it was a natural 20, and it was, I swear to God, just enough damage to kill the wyvern, like the exact number of hit points. It was insane. It was amazing, and it was a great moment. Of course, they were still surrounded by bad guys, so they weren't out of the woods quite yet, but that natural 20 probably saved them from a TPK. That was an amazing, amazing moment. Another one I have to mention is our blood hunter. She was trying to pick a lock to get into a castle with Mage Hand, and I had told her that Mage Hand could be used to pick locks when I was pitching the spell to her, because she's a brand new player, so she didn't really know what Mage Hand could do, and that was like an example I gave. So I felt bad for telling her, oh yeah, you couldn't technically pick the lock, you don't have proficiency, you don't have lock picks. But then I thought, I told her that it was possible, and she explained that she does have a hair tie at the beginning of the game, and okay, whatever, I'll let her roll at disadvantage. Her dexterity isn't that great, so there's no way she's gonna roll like 2 natural 20s in a row. She rolled 2 natural 20s in a row. It was actually really great. Okay, best nat 1 comes from me as a player. I was playing Cal, my necromancy bard, and it was only for like a few short games, so they started us at pretty high level. And what we did was we entered into a mansion that we weren't supposed to be in, and the guards were on us. And everyone was like, hey, hey, Cal should persuade them. Cal should persuade them. He has high persuasion. He's a bard. And I'm like, okay, I've got this. I've got this. I can roll deception, persuasion, whatever. I've got this. Let's go. I rolled a natural 1. Immediately. It was the one thing I was supposed to be good at. Like, the one thing my bard was supposed to be able to do. And I was like, damn, this sucks. Well, to hell with it. What I decided to do was stick my undead minions. I had gathered a good amount of them by this point, and I don't remember what they were. I don't remember if they were ghouls or zombies, because I also can't remember what level we were. I'm tempted to say we were like a mid-level party because we wanted to be a bit more powerful for this shorter campaign. But I sticked these zombies or ghouls or whatever, probably ghouls, onto these guards, and the DM basically just... he looked at the stat sheet of the ghouls, and he looked at the stat sheet for his guards, and he realized that they just couldn't compete with the ghouls and myself, and he was just like, okay, man, how are you doing this? How do you just slaughter these guys? And I'm just like, well, I didn't want to be completely evil as this character. I wasn't trying to be an evil guy, but at the same time, the idea of a bard singing and dancing around while ghouls rip apart these, I'm pretty sure they were corrupt guards, so I mean it was justified. So as these ghouls rip apart these guards was just amazing to me. So that natural 1 ended up actually being one of my favorite moments for that character. It was amazing. I would love to play Cal again. It was great. Even if it wasn't in a long-term campaign, it was an amazing moment. I think Cal was level 10 or 11. I again can't remember. Yeah, sorry. There are a lot of magic items in D&D, and I have to say the one that I definitely love the most is the dancing sword. I love this thing so much. It is so cool. The idea of a sword that just fights independently of you like a sword familiar is just amazing to me. From a practical standpoint, it's a pretty good gameplay option if you just need to fill that bonus action. Like, you just don't have anything you can use your bonus action for, so dancing sword. It's just a great weapon. Even if it does have to return to the sheath after, I think, 3 attacks, it's still an amazing weapon. Thematically, it's just cool. If I ever play Cal in a long-term campaign, I will beg and plead the DM for a dancing sword to give him, just because I think that would be such a cool combo. It would synergize really well with his kit, and oh man, it would just be amazing. Like, imagine a necromancer bard dancing around with his undead army while his sword flies around killing his enemies. That would be awesome. Overall, I mean, come on. The dancing sword's just cool. Okay. So, I don't really believe in alignment in D&D. Like, I assign alignments to characters just because, I don't know, it's expected. But I don't really think alignment should dictate too much of your character's decisions. So, if I don't believe in alignment for my fantasy characters, I definitely don't believe in alignment for real people. But if I had to choose one, I don't know, probably neutral good if I'm being honest. I'm not very lawful. I don't have an obsession with following rules, but I do have rules, and there are rules I really like following. And if I don't have to break a rule, I won't. But I'm also not incredibly chaotic either. That's just not how I am. I'm very organized. So, yeah, neutral good, probably. I have a goblin lined up named Cookie, who I played a couple times, but I never really got to really play him. They weren't roleplay heavy games, so I never got to play his character, and that really sucked, even though I had fun playing him. He was a Hexblade Warlock at the time, but I might switch him to maybe a swashbuckler rogue kind of character, because I like that idea. But he's a cool character. I haven't gotten to play him yet, in a very long campaign, or even a short-term campaign, because I haven't been playing much as a player recently in the past few years. but it would be really cool to use him in any sort of campaign setting. And also, of course, Cal. Like I mentioned him before, but I would love to use him more just because I never got to really flesh him out. But yeah, both those characters would be amazing to bring back and to really use in the campaign. There are NPCs that I've made for my homebrew world, for my campaign, my current home game that I like, but I ditched them because they no longer fit in the story. Like the vision I had originally just didn't pan out. I'm trying not to spoil this for my players who watch these videos, but one character I had lined up for my mafia organization, he definitely didn't pan out. He was like a mad scientist who turned himself into like a really messed up looking illithid mind flayer. Didn't really pan out. I ended up ditching the character, even if I really liked the idea of him and his connection with this like mafia organization as their sort of secret source of magical power, because in order to get an edge in the world they needed magic, so they went to this guy. But overall I just sort of changed their sort of source of power to something more general and broad, just because I didn't think the character fit with the campaign anymore, even if he is a cool character and I might use him for something else in maybe another campaign down the line. Am I a dice goblin or am I a dice minimalist? Honestly, man, here's the thing. When I spend money on D&D, I'd rather spend money on maps. That's the thing I really need in a game. I need maps. Dice, I'm just not really into. I don't get sent dice. People gift me dice. People have gifted me dice for like Christmas, and I got a really nice set of dice this Christmas. They're these really nice metal dice that make a nice clang when you toss them down, but they dent my table, so I really hesitate to use them outside of using them on like a mat or something. But those dice are really, really nice. But other than those, I just don't like collecting dice. I don't really have a drive to collect them. I mean, I will accept dice and I will use them, but stuff like a dice roller when you're rolling like tons of damage is convenient, not only because you can roll dice quickly, but also because if your party doubt what you roll, you can just turn your screen and show them. Like for example, there was one time where my bard in my party, he was gonna die. Like I was sure that this illithid was going to kill him. I didn't realize how low he was on hit points, and I was like, oh crap, I already said it. So here we go, roll damage for the illithid brain suck thing. And yeah, I rolled terrible. I mean, god awful damage. I tuned down the illithid so that they could fight the party, but even the tune down, like it was super low than average damage. I mean, like I rolled way more ones than I probably should have. It was crazy, and the bard didn't believe me. He thought that I was just lying to let him live, but I turned the screen around and he was like, oh crap. Like it was insane how little damage that attack did, and he made it out barely with his life. Overall, more of a dice minimalist, just because of the convenience offered by a dice roller, even if I do like the sound of dice clattering onto the table. Okay, there are plenty of rules that I can't wrap my head around, but I just never remember grapple. Never remember grapple. Never, ever. And the difference between the normal range of an attack and the long range of a ranged attack, I never remember that either. Those are just two rules that are simple. They're really easy. I could probably just look them up right now, but as I'm sitting in this chair, I just don't remember them. I have like an empty slot on my DM screen. Like I have 3 sections of my DM screen that I can attach papers to. One of these days, I'm going to get a stack of papers and I'm going to print out all the rules I forget and just put it on my DM screen right there so it never happens again. I need to get to that eventually. It is important, but yeah, those 2 rules, never remember them. Okay, and that is all of them. The questions are linked down in the description below. And also Ginny D and Mark Hulmes' videos where they answer these questions as well. If you guys enjoyed this episode, then please do hit that like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me, I have 2 other series on this channel, RPG Horror Stories and Tabletop Tavern Tips. Hit that subscribe button. And if you want to leave your own answers to these questions, then go down into the comments down below. In essence, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Farewell.